Hi, everybody. So, for the Disability Pride Month edition of my series where I do a character analysis of the different characters in Friends and Gilmore Girls, I am going to talk about the different representations of neurodivergency in these two shows. Now, at the time period that these two shows were on TV, the neurodivergency was not really well recognized. I know that with Friends, I think it's mostly theorized that these characters are neurodivergent, but like for certain people, you can sort of tell they might have disabilities. I mean, some of the disabilities you can clearly see, like for example, Monica has an obsessive compulsive disorder, and you can tell this by like how she's obsessed with cleaning and making things neat. This is a trait of hers you notice throughout the whole series, but two specific episodes it stands out in are the one with the sonogram at the end where she's cleaning the house, getting ready for her parents, and the one where Phoebe runs. In Monica and Chandler's plotline in this episode, Chandler cleans the apartment as a surprise for Monica, but then forgets to put everything back the way that she likes it after he finishes cleaning. And he kind of has an anxiety attack when she gets home because like he's afraid he's going to be mad. And I mean, I love that scene between them because it was so sweet what he did for her, and how Monica finally relinquishes the power and realizes she needs to let go of being so neurotic. The next character I wanted to talk about when it comes to neurodivergency representation in Friends is Ross. Some specific things that stand out to me about Ross when it comes to neurodivergency is emotional control. This is specifically noticeable in the one with Ross's sandwich, where he has the breakdown about his coworker eating his Thanksgiving Day leftover sandwich, and then he goes to the school therapist who puts him on medication. Another quality of Ross's that kind of tunes you into neurodivergency is his hyperfixation on a certain topic. Like, for example, I have a special interest besides talking about Friends and Gilmore Girls. Another thing I like to talk about on YouTube is musical theater. So that's one of my hyperfixations. And in Ross's case, his hyperfixation is paleontology and dinosaurs. And like in certain scenes in Friends, when he's constantly talking about dinosaurs to his friends, you can tell by general observation in the scene that the rest of his friends are really bored by what he's saying, and there's not a lot of interest from the rest of them in what he's talking about. I don't remember which episode this is, but there's an episode where he's talking about dinosaurs in the cold open, and the other characters are going through their heads thinking different things. Like Monica's really bored, Rachel is really hyper-focused on, like, how into talking about this he really is. Gunther also has an inner monologue where he says, what does Rachel see in this guy? Because he has a secret crush on Rachel that nobody knows about, including Rachel. And then Chandler's inner monologue is like, what superpower would I have if I were a superhero? I think he also says something about wanting to be Batman. And then Joey starts humming a song in his head. And then Phoebe's inner monologue is like, who's singing? Can people remind me which cold open from which episode that is? Because I don't remember. The next character I want to mention is Chandler. So I did a whole retrospective on Chandler's character a couple of weeks ago when I did a video that focuses on art imitating life, and how certain aspects of Chandler's character imitate Matthew Perry's real life. As far as neurodivergency, yeah, I mean, his coping mechanism of using humor as a coping mechanism for his anxiety, I think, is an example of neurodivergency. And also his anxiety. And then for Phoebe, she takes certain things literally, and also her strict moral code when it comes to certain things. Like, for example, in the one where everybody finds out when she's wearing the Christmas bow to cover the hummus stain on a yellow dress, she says that she's being political, and Chandler asks her, what cause are you standing up for? And she's like, Christmas, of course, because she apparently doesn't like Christmas for some reason. I think it's because her mother died before Christmas or something, I don't remember. And in Gilmore Girls, the representation of, when I Googled neurodivergency in Gilmore Girls characters, I noticed that almost every single main character in Gilmore Girls has some aspect of neurodivergency. The first character I wanted to talk about is Rory. The information I found actually has multiple characters listed as having ADHD. Lorelai, Rory, Madeline, and Suki. For Rory and ADHD, she has trouble navigating social cues when she's in this situation at school. This is mostly in the episodes I haven't seen yet. Like, for example, when she's in college at Yale. I haven't seen very many of those episodes yet, except for You Jump, I Jump, Jack, which is the first episode where she goes to the secret society that Logan is in. The other thing is the strict need for focus and routine. Lorelai has this quality also, and she's also very impulsive. Suki is also very impulsive. The next character that had traits of neurodivergency is Paris. And this is really interesting because I have a theory that Paris is related to Monica and Ross because she has a lot of similar personality traits to her. She's neurotic, she's hyper-focused on certain things, like getting into Harvard is her hyper-focus, which she totally throws out the window in the episode where she's in the C-SPAN debate. She's also bluntly honest, which is another quality of Ross that I forgot to talk about. And then she also struggles with social cues, which Ross also... I have noticed this in my rewatch of Friends, that Ross does seem to have a lot of trouble with social cues. And the last character I wanted to talk about is Madeline, who is one of Paris's mean girl counterparts, who, even though she's best friends with Paris, I feel she's like mismatched with Paris and Louise, because out of all the mean girls in that three group of girls, she's like the nicest run to Rory, and she doesn't understand why she doesn't understand the social cue of Madeline and of Louise and Paris being mean to Rory, and she just does her own thing and is really nice to her. And I really wish a friendship between them had developed outside of the whole mean girl aspect of her being friends with Paris and Louise, because that would have been really fun to see. Another quality of Madeline that makes her neurodivergent and that she could have ADHD is that she's easily distracted and always drooling in her notebook. So how I found out all this information is that if you just do a quick Google search of our characters on Friends and Gilmore Girls neurodivergent, you will get all of this information. I also watched a video on PensiveWhiskers' channel, which was a deep dive into Madeline and Louise, and she talks about the fan theory that Madeline could be neurodivergent. And also on her channel, she has an unpopular opinions video about Gilmore Girls where she mentions that Lorelai could be neurodivergent. As I said at the top of this video, when Friends and Gilmore Girls came out in the 90s and early 2000s, diagnoses of not neurodivergent disabilities were not really well known. So it was never outwardly stated by Marta Kaufman, David Crane, and Kevin Bright, or Amy Sherman Palladino, that certain characters in Friends and Gilmore Girls were neurodivergent. This is just research that I independently did. If you have anything to dispute this information that I found, or if you agree with me and you are neurodivergent too and find that you connect to these characters, please leave a comment. I definitely feel like in some ways I can relate to Monica, Phoebe, Paris, and Madeline. And I was diagnosed with my nonverbal learning disability when I was in high school. So if I had been watching Gilmore Girls at the time it originally came out, I feel like I would have been able to connect to Madeline and Paris's characters more so than I do now as an adult. And the reason why I came up with the fan theory that Monica and Ross could be related to Paris is also not only because of the personality traits they share that could possibly make them neurodivergent, but also because Paris says to Rory in one episode that generations of Gellers have gone to Harvard. So that makes me think that Monica and Ross could be in a generation above her, and that maybe Ross and Monica could have gone to college at Harvard to get whatever degrees they went to get. Like, Ross for paleontology and Monica for being a chef. So if you guys have any theories on if you think Paris and Ross and Monica are related and how that could be possible. Leave them in the comments below. Happy Disability Pride Month, everybody.